We'll ask something while you're talking. That's something.
All right. The time being 6 o'clock, and this being the Plymouth Select Board, we'll call to order this, the August 12th, 2025 meeting of the Plymouth Select Board. Please join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight's meeting of the Plymouth Select Board is taking place in a hybrid format. Members of the board are joining us here in person at the auditorium at Plymouth South High School. Members of the board may be joining us virtually over the Zoom webinar platform. Members of the public are joining us here in person at the auditorium at Plymouth South High School, and also may be joining us virtually over the Zoom webinar platform. The login information for the Zoom webinar platform is included on the agenda that is posted on the town website. And if you wish to participate via the Zoom, you may do so. You may also, as I said, attend in person, or if you just wish to observe the meeting but not participate, you can watch it on Comcast Channel 9, or Verizon Channel 47, or via the streaming section of the Local Scenes YouTube channel. Members of the public are also reminded, pursuant to Massachusetts general law, that any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of the Select Board after notifying the chair, subject to reasonable requirements of the chair, so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any recordings. At present, we are aware of a recording being made by the local scene for the television broadcast and the Zoom. You're not aware of any other recordings at this time. All right. So that brings us into our agenda. We have, first and foremost, a number of administrative notes. We have 5 administrative notes. Wish of the board in regards to the 5 administrative notes.
Mr. Chairman, unless my colleagues wish to take them separately, I will make a motion to approve administrative notes 1 through 5 as a group.
Okay, Mr. Golden has moved that we approve admin notes 1 through 5 as a group. Do I have a second?
A second.
Ms. Iaquinto has seconded. Any discussion about whether or not we should recommend admin notes 1 through 5 as a group? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
And myself, yes, it is unanimous. We have approved admin notes 1 through 5 as a group. That brings us into the next item on our agenda, that being the town manager's report. We are joined by Town Manager Derek Brindisi, who is prepared to give us his town manager's report at this time. Mr. Brindisi.
Great, thank you so much. So I have a lot of information to report tonight. Some of it has to do with this area of town. Some of it is more broad. A lot of business, as you can imagine, is taking place over the summer months. But let me start by first talking about some of the projects locally. So those folks who have gone through the intersection of Halfway Pond and Long Pond Road, they probably still notice that the road has been widened. Halfway Pond Road has been widened. We still have this tree that's kind of stuck in the middle of the roadway. So we've been working, in particular, the Director of Public Works has been working very closely with the DPU and Verizon to get that tree removed. So I know when you traverse the area, it looks unusual, and we agree it is unusual, but we're trying to navigate the red tape of DPU and Verizon to get that tree taken down. Once that tree is taken down, we will complete the widening of the project. At that point, the widening of the project will be final. We'll stop at that point, especially as school is about to begin in a couple weeks, and then wait for the signal equipment to come in to complete that project. So we're expecting the signal equipment to come in sometime in early fall, and then we'll complete that project. Speaking of signal equipment, the intersection on Clark Road and Pine Hills Drive, give me 1 second. The intersection of Clark Road and Pine Hills Drive, the turning lanes have been complete. the road widening has been complete. They are now waiting for the signal equipment for that intersection to be complete. Once the signals come in, that project will be over, we're hoping by mid-September. At the same time, there is, at 100% design, the intersection at Clark Road and Landmark Drive. So our DPW is working with the contractor on that final design, and so folks will see more traffic improvements along Clark Road at that second intersection. Again, they'll also add a signal there as well. So that's some traffic improvements. I want to recognize this evening Captain Jason Higgins. So Jason Higgins has recently retired. He served on the Plymouth Police Department for 28 years, and so I wish Jason well in his future endeavors, and he has served this community great. At the same time, I also want to recognize two of our lifeguards. On July 31st, we had two children that were rescued. And they were rescued by first and second year lifeguards Ashley Godry and Gage Chasteen. That these two individuals, young children, were swimming near the jetty. Strong waves had pushed them out towards the sea, and again, they were rescued by Ashley and Gage. So congratulations to those two young individuals for their swift actions in saving two lives. So I wanted to recognize those individuals. And just moving on to a couple other things, as I mentioned in the past, we are doing a lot with engaging the community and really trying to get feedback from our residents on a lot of different fronts. So I'm going to try to combine a couple of these ideas all at once. So as reported to the Select Board about a month ago, the Health and Human Services Department is launching their first ever community health assessment. And so they'll spend about a year analyzing quantitative and qualitative data in order to establish a number of health priorities for a final health improvement plan. So they're launching their survey in the next week or so, so I want folks to look out for it. They're also going to have a table at the Waterfront Festival to engage folks on a one-on-one basis to learn more about what health means to them and their families and their neighborhoods. But at the same time, the fire chief also has a table at the...
Derek, your mic.
I'm back on? Okay, thank you. So the fire chief, Neil Foley, also has a table at the Waterfront Festival to do something very similar. So as you all know, he's talked a lot about a community wildfire program and plan. And so they have been working on this for about 6 months now. And so they will be engaging the community at the same time at the Waterfront Festival to learn more what they need as far as wildfire protection. We are also already launched our Hedges Pond Recreation Area and Forges Field Recreation Area. We have two master planning processes that are taking place simultaneously. I know Hedges Pond Recreation Area is really important to the folks that live in this part of town. So be on the lookout, because there are surveys that are taking place that are out there that are, again, asking the community for input as to what do they envision the Hedges Pond Recreation Area looking like and the Forges Field Recreation Area looking like. What type of services, amenities do our residents want us to include in the final plan? We spent the entire summer working with the youth and recreation programs, one-on-one with our Little Leagues and football programs, engaging them. So now we're going more broader to the community. So again, I want folks to be aware of what's happening out there on those two master planning processes. The Route 80 Cemetery project is moving forward. We just opened bids yesterday, so as you all know, especially our town meeting members, town meeting appropriated $3 million to construct a new cemetery on Route 80. We had the lowest bid at $1.9 million. So assuming we make the final references and recommendations, we will be awarding this, and this project will begin this fall. Hopefully we'll cut a ribbon in a year from today. BERTS, I know we have some interested folks on BERTS, so per the direction and encouragement of some town meeting members, the administration went back and poured through some CMRs, building code CMRs in particular, and identified a law that we think would help us move the BERTS property forward. The Commissioner of Buildings issued a notice to secure the building, first and foremost. A second notice was issued to demolish the building within 60 days of receipt of the notice. We received notice last week that the building has already been secured. There's a fence, I know, I'm sure you guys have seen, wrapped around the building. And then they've already pulled an application for a demolition permit. So we'll continue to monitor this. Nothing is done until it's done. So we'll keep the board apprised as to the progress on that project as well. On the policing front, I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that our second Student Police Academy, the graduation will take place this coming Friday. We have 20 students, both from our 8th and 9th grade classes, that participated in a 2-week program that was orchestrated by our resource officers, school resource officers. So congratulations to them, and this hopefully creates a pipeline for some of these individuals who may look at law enforcement as a future job opportunity. And then I just want to bring up, because it happened yesterday, the ZBA approved what was Claremont 300-unit 40B project last night. It's now been sold by Claremont to a company named Avalon. Because this has now been approved, Lee Harmon, our planning director, is filing for safe harbor today. We expect this to be approved by the state officials, which once approved, we will be in safe harbor for 2 years, which means to the town that any 40B project that comes forward for the next 24 months, we can reject. We do not have to entertain those applications for 24 months. Unfortunately, and I reported this 2 months ago, that the Pulte project, which is a 163-unit project up on Hedges Road, up in North Plymouth, they had already filed their application prior to getting to safe harbor. So we can't stop that project from proceeding, although we've submitted a letter to the state encouraging them not to approve the comprehensive permit. But it seems like the state is going to allow them to continue to drive forward. So 300 units at Claremont or in Colony Place, and then 163 units by Pulte up in North Plymouth. Not a good thing, because I met with the fire chief and police chief today, and these types of projects are straining our resources. I know I'm preaching to the choir in this room, but they are absolutely draining the public safety resources. You know, they reference the Oasis, they reference the 40-hour project at Cottage Park as 2 areas where they receive numerous calls for service. They have concerns what this new project in Colony Place will pose, and certainly the Pulte project. So I guess what I'm saying is that be forewarned that if this continues, this trend, we are going to be seeking additional manpower, both in fire and police, because of the overwhelming population that these 40B projects are creating. So, you know, I have other things I certainly could report, but I think I'm going to stop there and turn it back to the board, pending any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brindisi. Any questions from board members for Mr. Brindisi? All right. Thank you. So that brings us to the next item on our agenda, and that item is the main reason why we are here, that being the public question and answer session. So this is our third town hall on the road meeting. So those that have watched the others would be familiar with the format, but for anyone, every board meeting is potentially someone's first board meeting, so we'll go over the format regardless. First and foremost, the microphones that we have, whether you're a board member or a member of the administration sitting at those tables, these mics are always on, so just be cognizant of that. We, at the Great Hall or other places, we can turn them on and off. We cannot do that here. There's also sort of a sweet spot for these mics, so you want to try and have it about 2 inches from your face so that you can be picked up in it appropriately, and try not to move around too much. Try and stay in that sweet spot. If you're a member of the public coming up, keep that in mind when you're talking to that mic so that you can be heard both by people in the room and by people on the Zoom. There is also, as you can see from the screen behind me, for those in attendance physically, and anyone watching over the television or over YouTube would have this feature as well. There's the live closed captioning, which isn't perfect, but it does a pretty good job. So I know audio people might be not exactly in the sweetest spot, but it's still being picked up there. So that can supplement to make sure that people can understand as much as possible. But do please keep in mind the good mic etiquette and good mic practices that I just went over throughout the meeting. In terms of the structure of the meeting, so if you come up, you can either make a traditional public comment, like you would at any select board meeting, or you can come up at this meeting and ask questions of the board or administration with the idea of getting a response. We will you'd have up to 3 minutes to ask your question or make your comment. You're not required to ask a question, you can just make a comment, but you'll have up to 3 minutes per person to do that. We will take up to 3 questions on a given topic before we move on to another topic. We can circle back once we've exhausted all the topics, but I just don't want, if there's a number of people here for one particular item and then there's some other people for other items, I don't want any one topic to completely dominate the meeting. We don't have a time limit on this meeting, so we can obviously circle back and cover items of particular interest in the depth that people are interested in covering them in, but just keep that general format in mind. All right, so, I am also going to give preference in terms of people I call on to people that are here in physical attendance, although we will also be calling on people over the Zoom as appropriate to ask their questions or give their comment as well. So, with that in mind and without further ado, does any member of the public in physical attendance wish to come to the mic and either ask a question or give a comment? Yes, you may come up to the microphone. Please introduce yourself and either ask your question or give your comment.
Good evening. I have a question for Derek. I might have missed it on the surveys that it's going out for Health and Human Services, and I think the other one. How is that going out?
These surveys will be online surveys, so we'll promote them through the town's website. We'll certainly promote them through our social media sites. Those are our kind of primary modes for online electronic surveys.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Mr. Lydon, yes?
Steve Lydon, I have a question. About Memorial Hall, I was under the impression that the town spent $150,000 for consultants to go through that building and tell us everything that was wrong. I'm assuming that was done, and if that was done, why do we need an historic survey to be done? I mean, I'm sure that we've done projects before that are historical that we didn't have historical surveys done. And I'm sure that if the town manager and the staff, the different projects they brought up, if it was historical, they would have hired an historical contractor and make sure that they would comply with any historical facts. So I was just wondering why we're doing it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lydon. Mr. Cohan, did you want to address?
I'm not sure of the cost. I think you're referencing the feasibility study that the town did. That's different from a historical survey where you're looking at the materials and determining how best to approach them in any form of decisions made around the building, whether we renovate it, whatever we do with Memorial Hall, it needs to be based on information. Those materials that make up that building require that analysis to give the town guidance on how best to make repairs and renovations to that building. So I'm not sure what I'll have to defer to town staff on the cost of the feasibility study, but the feasibility study is one aspect of this. This is an entirely different aspect where you're looking at the materials, you're looking at the historical integrity of the building, and it's giving you guidance on how best to make any renovations or any of the further decisions with the building. Both documents should be done so that when we start the planning process and start to look at options. We're basing it on accurate information of the current condition of the building and the feasibility of the decisions we're making. So it's part of the due diligence. It can be frustrating when you end up having to study things, but as long as that study is bringing evidence to give the residents a better sense of what they can and cannot do with the building in the affordability of those activities, it's a good investment.
Thank you, Mr. Cohan. Any other members of the board wish to respond to Mr. Lydon's inquiry? All right. Do we have anyone else that wishes to ask a question on Memorial Hall? Yes, please come to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Phil Ferragudo, and I live at 3 Weathervane. I'm very involved with Memorial Hall. My wife and I are the head ushers of the Plymouth Phil. We love the Phil, loathe the hall. It's a disaster. 75% of the seats face the wrong way, and I don't see any way that could be saved. My question is, have anybody on the board or the town manager gone and seen venues like Groton Hill or Shaylin Lou in Rockport, which are spectacular venues that take up about the same footprint that Memorial Hall does? I know it would be more money, but it'd be, in my opinion, well worth it.
Okay. So I am not personally familiar with those specific cited mid-sized venues, but I have seen other sort of mid-sized venues at other communities that are differently structured and laid out than Memorial Hall. But I think in order to achieve that, you'd be talking about a new building versus rehabbing that building. So that's a different discussion. So obviously what's going on with Memorial Hall is in an intermediary stage, and what is going to happen next, whether we're going to try to and ultimately be successful in securing and preserving the current structure, or whether we would have to tear that structure down with the intention of rebuilding it. And then obviously there's the third option of not doing either of those things presently due to current financial realities. But we are currently exploring the possibilities in regards to historic preservation of the structure, which would not involve doing what you suggested or making a structure that ultimately results in resembling those buildings. If we were, however, to tear the structure down with the intention of rebuilding it into a modern mid-sized entertainment venue and function venue, we would be looking at similarly sized and situated performance venues as an inspiration for what could be done on that current footprint. Memorial Hall has the potential to be an economic driver to the downtown, so it's not just about the money that it directly brings in, but also the money that it helps generate within the community more broadly, and jobs that it indirectly supports in our community as well. So those are factors that the board is considering, and the CPC obviously is considering or will consider after the historic study is completed, whether it is a good use of CPC dollars, in their opinion, to preserve the building in its current state, and then obviously town meeting would have a say in that as well. Any other members? Ms. Iaquinto?
Yeah. So yes, I believe that there was a group from town that visited Portsmouth recently. Mr. Brindisi and a few others have already made that sort of inquiry into what their venue is like.
So last fall, myself, folks from the DPW, Planning Department, Economic Development, and Department of Energy and Environment, we had taken a trip up to Portsmouth and really to meet with the city officials, the Chamber of Commerce, to learn a lot of things, particularly, how they build their infrastructure, and their means and methods and why they do what they do. During that tour, we had an opportunity to visit the music hall, which is a fabulous venue in downtown Portsmouth. Because of that, most recently, and I say recently, this morning, a subcommittee has been developed, and we're actually emailing today with the city of Portsmouth to not just look at the venue so much, but learn more about their business model and see if there's some things that we can take away from their business model. Because from what I understand, their business model in Portsmouth, and it's a very, very successful venue, is not led by municipal officials. And so we want to take a look at all those. If I know I've talked to a number of board members, there's a lot of different things we want to look at during this period when we do this historical study. So, looking at other venues, looking at other business models, looking at what it would cost to demolish and reconstruct, potentially thinking about putting an RFI out there for a developer maybe to come in or want to partner with the community. So we're trying to explore all those different fronts and bring back recommendations back to the select board for their consideration.
I think that that's really important, and that's great to hear about the subcommittee that's been formed to take a look at the business models. I think that the location of the venue makes it such a interesting opportunity to really create a much more vibrant downtown area. In terms of an economic development opportunity, I think that it's one that we really do need to explore. But we do need a really solid business case for Memorial Hall. We need to let the business case drive the design, not vice versa. So we need to have it, and by that I mean we need to have a really good understanding of how we want that building to be used. It will just be for musical opportunities, or will there be other uses for it? So there are some venues like that offer music lessons. There are others that also have live theater. So there are lots of different opportunities for a venue like that, and we should really be exploring all of those before we decide how to move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Iaquinto. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was on that. I was with that group up in Portsmouth as well in the fall. I think looking into the business model is a smart move on your part, Derek. You and I have had several conversations about how we could potentially move forward with Memorial Hall. We do need to, though, look at the structure of the building. The music hall is specifically designed to be an entertainment venue. It's architecturally interesting. It's acoustically appropriate for the types of shows that get put on there. Memorial Hall is a museum wrapped in a meeting space, wrapped in a gymnasium, wrapped in an entertainment venue. It's not appropriate for the type of community event that we want to see happen there. So although the business model I do think takes precedent, we also have to look at, well, what if we're going to accomplish that same goal, see those same types of shows in this venue, how are we going to drive the type of talent to that building? And it's going to have to start with how the building's laid out.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Mr. Cohan?
It's a good idea to look at other communities and how they operate venues of this nature. But I do believe that hearing tonight's discussion about demolition of the building or the building, that I do have reservations. I think that we should look at all options equally. I am concerned about this idea of demolition of the building and building a new venue site in light of all the other responsibilities this town has in terms of building other facilities that are probably taking higher precedent priorities, schools, fire, police. These are things that we're looking at, and we have a very limited tax levy in the town of Plymouth. And I think we need to be very cautious, and it would be nice that we could have the state-of-the-art facility there, but we might have to be a little bit more strategic and a little bit conservative in terms of the costs we spend. Obviously, looking at business models gives us an idea of what the adaptive reuse might be, and we can design the building around those reuses to assure a higher level of revenue coming in so that we have revolving funds, that the building becomes sustainable, and it also complements the downtown businesses. Obviously, these are all things that we have to keep in mind, but we are a town with a great deal of responsibilities financially, and we have to at times live within our means, having the state-of-the-art facility there at that location might be difficult to achieve, but maybe we can achieve something that is more affordable and just as beneficial to the community. So just as we embark on this, on these feasibility studies, on this community-wide discussion about what to do at Memorial Hall and the historical examination of the building, I think we always have to keep in mind the importance of the historical character of the building and what we can afford as a community.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Any other board members? All right. Anyone else in physical attendance wish to ask a question or comment specifically on Memorial Hall? Yes, Mr. Stone.
Ken Stone. Following up on Mr. Leiden's question about the $90,000 for the historic study, I think I read in the Independent that that also needed to be done in order to access the CPA money, that if we were going to spend it on certain things. So that's my question. Is that inaccurate? I think what I read is that CPA could only be used for certain historic things, and you had to make sure that the monies that would be allocated would address that.
Sure. So we wouldn't per se need to do a historical study in order to access historical funds, but I do think there was some concern, having attended the initial CPC meeting on the topic, that there was some concern about some members of the CPC that questioned whether all of the proposed $15 million was going towards a historical purpose. And I guess at a minimum, reasonable minds could differ on that. So having a study would have more concrete, itemized examples of what the historical funding is being used for. The current proposal to CPC was for $15 million out of a projected total project cost, we were to do everything, of $34 million. So it already was not designed to cover everything that the hall needs or wants in the near or medium term, but there was still questioning, as I recall, about the $15 million and whether all of that was appropriately historical. Any other board members wish to? All right. All right, so that's 3 on Memorial Hall. Any members of the public in physical attendance wish to ask a question or give a comment on a different topic? Yes.
Good evening, Ethan Warren. I'm changing the subject. I'd like to commend the Department of Public Works for their excellent maintenance of our dirt roads in this area, and would like to comment, I guess, to the board that, at least on my behalf, and I'm a Precinct 16 town meeting member, and I know a number of constituents as well, would love to keep the preservation of as many dirt roads as we have, including the gem of Old Sandwich Road, but also the Ship Pond Road, western portion, and what Mass Road, and what's little left going into Rudbrook on Wareham Road. And there's a few more, West Long Pond Road, Morgan Road, various roads. They all add to the character of this end of town. And I know it can be difficult with development to keep them dirt, but it's a good goal, and it was a good goal in the development of Pine Hills to keep that center section as beautiful as it is as a dirt road. I just hope to have continued support where there can be from the select board on it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment or ask a question in regards to the DPW's maintenance efforts in regards to dirt roads? Okay. Anyone in virtual attendance, Jade, who wishes to comment or ask a question in regards to dirt roads? Okay. Any members of the public in physical attendance wish to comment or ask a question on something else entirely? Mr. Zuckerman?
I have a question about affordable housing. I know you support affordable housing very strongly. Question is how to specifically do that. I designed a new triple-decker for Boston Society of Architects competition and would like to present this project as well as my research, the rise, the fall, and rebirth of the triple-decker, and would like you to schedule this PowerPoint presentation in your board. And second question is, what do you think about building houses on a town-owned land in general, and the triple-decker in particular?
Okay. Well, affordable housing is certainly a priority for the board, and not just this board, but even recent prior boards. So obviously the issue of affordability in general in Plymouth is a hot topic. So we are trying to explore many different options, including public and private partnerships to increase affordable housing stock and make affordable housing more affordable in terms of its AMI percentage as well. Proposals like the land bank that was proposed last fall are designed to bring down the overall cost of affordable housing. Obviously, we also have the Affordable Housing Trust. We have CPC dollars currently available as well. So those options are being examined and looked at. In terms of building affordable housing on current land that the town currently owns, I should say, that is, we have looked at and are continuing to look at and organize the properties that the town owns that are from tax title as well as from other sources, with the purposes of assessing what, if any, future use the town would want to make of those, including the possibility of housing. I would say that generally the town's efforts to directly construct affordable housing have been expensive per unit. So that's why the public-private partnership, or using public funds but giving it to private development to make a more cost-effective project, has been more recent preference. But those are the types of options that have been and continue to be considered on the topic of affordable housing. I know that personally it's very difficult for, in particular, young folks to buy their first home in Plymouth. That is a particular interest of mine, in trying to make Plymouth more sustainable in that sense, not just sustainable in an environmental sense, but sustainable in a generational sense. That I think that right now there are a lot of people with young children or young adults that they cannot see that in their houses, that can't see those kids or those next generation of their family being able to remain in Plymouth due to rising costs. And that, I think, is a threat to the health and overall welfare of your community long term, and also tends to cause people to start making short-term decisions, because then you have a community of people that are only intending to be here on a short-term basis. And I think that's problematic when you reach a tipping point in that regard. I think you're seeing a lot of that on the Cape. You're seeing that sort of creep up to this area. And that's something that I very much would like to get out ahead of and try and correct before it becomes an existential threat, having grown up in Plymouth and lived here my whole life myself. Mr. Cohan?
Anatol, you bring up a very good point, and that is partnerships relevant to the town in organizations. And the chairman brings up a very valid point and a very important point, that we have worked with organizations, but over the years we've worked with nonprofits, that have special qualities to build housing. Obviously, you can work with private developers, but ultimately, an asset like land is held in the care and protection of the town and would require most likely town meeting action. And town meeting likes to see a project associated with what you were releasing the land to. So it definitely is something that the town has had a history. There's many examples that the town has taken town-owned land, town assets, and put them into play to be either converted to affordable housing or build affordable housing. And we've done that with nonprofits, and we've done that for profits. So partnering with business in the private sector is an option, but we can't forget all the different organizations that exist in Plymouth that are building housing, that are nonprofit organizations. Any profit that they do make in such an activity would be reinvested in the community as their mission indicates. So I think it's something the town should always be aware of. My advice might be keeping an eye on land use and acquisition, the assessor's office, open space. These are committees that do make inventories at time. I know the town is always looking at its holdings to see what might be appropriate, but I just remind people that it's important to note that yes, there's opportunities to partner with the private developer, but we should also be looking at the people here in our community that are dedicated to building housing in the nonprofit world too.
Thank you, Mr. Cohan. Any other members of the board on the topic of affordable housing? Mr. Gold?
Yeah, I actually want to talk about the triple-decker piece that Mr. Zuckerman brought up. I come from the land of triple-deckers. I was born and raised in South Boston before moving to beautiful Plymouth. I don't think that triple-deckers are necessarily a silver bullet for solving our housing crisis here in Plymouth. But I am curious, Derek, perhaps you know the answer. Does our present zoning bylaw prohibit the construction of triple-deckers?
The current zoning bylaw prohibits a structure to be built higher than 35 feet.
Okay, so that would probably
Yes.
necessarily prohibit triple-decker.
Yes.
Point of information for your question.
I'll leave that to you.
Mr. Golden, anything else?
No, I just, reiterate, I don't think triple-deckers are necessarily going to solve our housing crunch here. I think that but I think that we should take an all-of-the-above approach to providing adequate housing for the people that want to work and live here.
Okay. Thank you. Other board members on the topic of affordable housing? Mr. Cohan.
The zoning does permit multifamily, so
Yes.
Multifamilies are are available. You can do special permits for the height over 35 feet. So there are options, but I think that Plymouth is kind of interesting in the components of its neighborhoods, from areas that would be accommodating to a style of this magnitude to area where it wouldn't be as efficient. But it is interesting to note that someone's looking at reinventing the triple-decker.
Mr. Gold?
And I'll just say too that it will necessarily change the character of any neighborhood where significant number of triple-deckers are constructed.
Yes, it also stacking units like that in any would create a density depending on how many of them you deployed in a given area. So obviously one of the things the town is trying to do too is direct residential development that's of a higher density to areas that already have the infrastructure to support it, because as we were talking about with the 40Bs, the issue with those being high density that zoning can't control or regulate, they're placed in areas that the town doesn't have the infrastructure and we don't have much of a say on it unless we're in safe harbor. And in that situation, you have to provide police, fire protection, DPW, school, transportation to areas that are not designed to handle the volume because the surrounding community is set up to be, say, rural residential, as opposed to my neck of the woods, which doesn't have a lot of woods, North Plymouth, which is more set up for urban living than rural living, but depends on where you are and what you like about your neighborhood, I suppose, or don't like, as to whether you would find the concept of a triple-decker in that area to be amenable or, let's say, undesirable. So, other affordable housing responses at present. Other members of the public that wish to speak, that are physically present, that wish to either make a comment or ask a question in regards to the topic of affordable housing. Anyone online? Okay, so we're past that. All right, so any members of the public in physical attendance wish to cover a topic that we have not discussed yet? Yes. You can come up one at a time, but you can take the mic here.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Harrelson. I'm with the Community Land and Water Coalition, a Plymouth-based nonprofit organization, and I'm here today to talk on the topic of Plymouth Town Forest and Great South Pond. So for those of you who may or may not be aware, Plymouth Town Forest is a 317-acre parcel of town-owned property. It's home to unique and rare species and kettle ponds. Plymouth owns the land, and the Department of Conservation and Recreation holds the conservation restriction on it. As a piece of conserved property with a conservation restriction, there are limitations on the use of the town forest, just as there would be on any conservation land, such as what the public is and is not allowed to do. This is the same for any type of conservation land, whether publicly or privately held. For instance, some of the things that are prohibited in town forests are swimming, littering, umbrellas and tents, wagons, carts, and coolers, open fires or grills, disturbing vegetation, off-leash dogs, camping, ATVs or dirt bikes, diesel or gasoline motors. Unfortunately, there's a lot of tension around the beach that's on Great South Pond because it's accessible off of Drew Road, but it's part of the Plymouth Town Forest. And so these same conservation restrictions exist on this beach on Great South Pond as in Plymouth Town Forest. We don't want people not to have access to the water. We don't want people not to have access to nature. In fact, a group of residents have come together and put together an informational brochure that has information about all of the other publicly available swimming spots in Plymouth, including Miles Standish State Forest. Obviously, access to nature and access to beaches is an inherent human right, but this beach contains rare and protected species, and there's a conservation restriction on it. So there's just ongoing violations of the conservation restriction, many of which we've been made aware of, such as swimming, bonfires, ongoing use of the pond for outdoor baptisms, camping, multiple people swimming at the time. There was a bonfire on the beach this past weekend, but it's continuous throughout the summer. So all I'm asking for, I guess my question is that what is the town of Plymouth doing at the moment to respond to the 2023 letter from DCR asking for the town of Plymouth to uphold the conservation restriction on this beach, which includes commitment for consistent enforcement of illegal parking on Drew Road, commitment for consistent foot patrols, improved signage along Drew Road, establishment of a formal tow zone for the entirety of Drew Road, and continued and improved blockage of illegal roadside parking. Thank you.
Thank you. So the town has met with residents of Drew Road and discussed some of the issues that they are having and that they are seeing. and the town does the best that it can with the resources that it has available to respond to issues such as you've cited or other activity in the forest that come about. Public safety personnel are tasked with monitoring and enforcing those types of restrictions, and obviously it's a very large town with a lot going on, so we're not always able to enforce all the laws throughout the community, unfortunately, as much as we would like to if we had unlimited resources and manpower. But we believe that we're trying to do the best to address the issues we are made aware of in a timely fashion. That is an ongoing effort, and we continue to do that. Mr. Brindisi, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I just add a little more detail to everything you just said. You're 100% right, Mr. Chairman, that manpower is an issue. We have a vacancy of 14 police officers as we speak, as of today. Our natural resource officers are down to 3. But this issue of this recreation area or open space area was brought to my attention in 2022. In fact, we did a tour of the location. The area on Drew Road only has 2 public parking spaces, and so there's no public parking along Drew Road. It's a narrow dirt road. And so because we did, at the time, folks were pulling into the wooded areas and parking alongside the road, certainly creating a public safety hazard. So we had, with the DPW staff, had put boulders and tree trunks along the side of the road, and that has prevented parking alongside the road. From what we understand is happening now is that folks are being dropped off, and they're navigating their way into the area to recreate. So we've done as much as we can as far as infrastructure improvements to prevent that type of behavior, but we can't prevent folks from being dropped off.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brindisi. Any other board members? All right. Do we have another member of the public that wishes to speak in regards to the town forest and/or Great South Pond? You may come to the mic and introduce yourself.
I'm Denise Stowell. I live across on Boot Pond, but I see everything that's happening on Great South Pond. I feel like every night we're on patrol trying to make sure that there's no fires. Last night at 10:45, I called in a campfire to the fire department. So they came over with a shovel and said they covered up the fire. This has been going on all summer. I think the fire department said they had 10 calls over this summer, going over and telling people to get off of the beach. This is a coastal plain pond. It is protected because it has rare species. The endangered red-bellied turtle lives there. Many rare plants. Unfortunately, the allowance that people have been given to recreate on it has been severely disregarded. As we know, most people, when they want to go someplace, they take food, beer. I can't tell you how many hours, 4 hours, right after 4th of July, 2 of us went over and we collected 4 trash bags of trash. The Great Beach is gray because so much of the outer vegetation has been cut and used for firewood, for fires under the pitch pines and other very fire-prone bushes. Today, the wind has dried out everything in the last few days. It is very dry, it is very fire-prone, and our homes are being put at risk, period. And the amount of people swimming is there's a lot of people swimming. There's no lifeguard, there's no bathroom, so people are obviously peeing in the pond if they come for 3 or 4 hours, which is usually probably the smallest amount if they have to get dropped off or walk from Long Pond Road. We really need more oversight and help. We hope that on some of the holiday weekends, there could be someone patrolling, averting people from actually coming down the path with coolers and grills. I just can't tell you. This is not what should be happening in a conservation
You've
site.
exceeded your 3 minutes. Would you like an additional minute to conclude your remarks, or would you request further time than that, which would require an affirmative vote of the board?
That's fine. I think you get the message.
Okay, thank you. Is there another member of the public that wishes to speak in regards to the town forest or Great South Pond? Please introduce yourself.
Hello, folks. My name is Andrea Scott. I live on the eastern shore of Great South Pond, and I'm here to address the abuse of the conservation easement as well. First, I'd like to say thank you for hearing our concerns on this occasion. And Mr. Brandisi, I was at that meeting in 2022 with yourself, my fellow Pond Association members, and the police department. And I have to say thank you for the things that you have done. We first started out with ticketing. That didn't work. We put boulders in place. That worked to a good extent. But the very clever merrymakers, as you know, have found a workaround, and they're all being dropped off. My major concern is fire. We have an area that's exceedingly remote, hard to get to with emergency personnel and vehicles. Sandy soil retains no moisture. Last year's pine needles, last year's oak leaves, a very robust wind, and then what if we have a very carelessly extinguished fire on the beach? I know that Denise said there was a fire last weekend. There were actually 2 that I know of. It's my concern. I think it's everybody's concern. I don't have the answer. I'm just asking you to continue to work with us and see what we can do.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We will continue to monitor the area as we have, and there are many remote areas in the community, not just that area, and the fire department, just to assure people's concerns, does have the ability to, it's not just vehicles that require pavement or even dirt roads, but they do have bush breakers and the ability to get into fires in remote areas as needed. Hopefully that isn't needed, but if we didn't need things like that, then the fire department wouldn't even exist. So obviously, we are prepared for those eventualities as much as we can be, although with certain public safety considerations, there are current manpower issues that we are trying to address. Any other members of the board wish to chime in on town forest or Great South Pond? Mr. Cohan?
Yes, so the town forest obviously comes with certain restrictions and certain obligations the town has to meet. The residents, you want to balance the residents' access to these conservation lands as best we can, but some lands are deemed for environmental and water protection. Some are designed more for active and passive recreational usage, and we try to do our best to manage that. Town manager pointed out an important aspect of staffing as it comes to the Office of Energy and Environment. That's a department that provides individuals that can go out and interact with these locations with a greater sense of knowledge. He indicated there's only 3 people working in that capacity for a town of 70,000. So we have quite a bit of ponds in our town. So that's something that the town has to look at in terms of how it properly staffs these departments to go out to make sure that the restrictions are being enforced. But Ms. Scott, you do point out some, obviously efforts of the town to coordinate with the neighbors to find ways. I still think that opportunity still exists to expand on what we've tried. I don't want to give up just because someone has found a sneaky way to get out there.
All right. Any other members of the board? Okay. So any members of the public in physical attendance wish to cover a topic that we haven't covered yet? Yes, please come to the microphone and identify yourself.
Philip Vody, 25 Mintzbrigg. Cape Cod Bay is a treasure. We attend Whitehorse Beach at least 3 or 4 days a week. The crowds have been absolutely incredible this summer, and we have real concerns that there are no lifeguards there. However, that's this year. Last year, there were lifeguards. It is really a concern for safety. We'd like to know about that.
We would like to know why there's
Why
no
don't we have
lifeguard? Okay. Mr. Brindisi, would you care to expand on why Whitehorse Beach does not have lifeguards?
Yeah, so this was a conversation that had taken place with the Commission of Health and Human Services and the Recreation Director. So first and foremost, it's difficult to find lifeguards these days. I mean, that's been a problem that we've faced for at least 5 years now. We're not the only community facing a lifeguard shortage. There's other communities that have done the same, have the same problem. DCR has a similar problem with locating these individuals. And so that's problem number one. Problem number two is that when we look at the area on Whitehorse Beach that was actually guarded, it was approximately 300 feet. So when we look at Whitehorse Beach as a whole, you know, all the way from Manament Point Road all the way down to Whitehorse Road, there are segments of that beach that are private. There are segments of that beach that are public, say at the end of Whitehorse Road and Taylor, that boat ramp where the full sail is. And then there's segments of the beach that are public over by the other boat ramp at Boathouse Lane. And all those areas I just explained are already unguarded. So when we kind of did the cost-benefit analysis, given the fact that it's difficult to find lifeguards, and we need minimum 3 lifeguards to staff, because when one takes a break, 2 have to be on the beach, it made better sense to move in a direction of hiring a beach supervisor, and that's what we did this year. So we hired a beach supervisor who has direct communication to fire and police, who walks the beach, that area that was already guarded, looks for concerns, public safety hazards, public safety threats, or any other concerns that they may have, and has the ability to contact fire and police and others. Our police department, they have a UTV that is already located on Taylor Ave, so we believe that they have the ability to quickly respond. So we know it's not perfect, but that's, given this current circumstances, that's the best that we thought we could manage given the lifeguard shortage.
Thank you, Mr. Brindisi. Any other members, any members of the board wish to comment on lifeguards at Whitehorse Beach? All right. Any members of the public in physical attendance also wish to talk about lifeguards at Whitehorse Beach? Anyone virtually? All right. Anyone else in physical attendance wish to cover a topic that we have not covered yet? Yes, Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I have a brief question and then a slightly longer question. The brief question has to do with the town warrant, which closed last Friday at noon. And when will it be available to the public? Is it available now so that we can see what these articles are? Now that it's closed, and if you're referring them to town council, I don't think that should prevent the public from seeing what these articles are right now, because we have a very short time, as you know, at a town meeting. That's the first question. The second question has to do with what I've read, and I've heard the discussion of at least a couple members of the board as to SMRs being available for the Pilgrim site. And not knowing what SMRs were, I did a little research, and I see that it stands for small module reactors. And I said, oh my God, here we go again. It's deja vu all over again. But I wanted to see whether this was a likelihood for Plymouth. It turns out even the past chair of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission says that these particular types of reactors don't exist anywhere in the world. They're not approved yet anywhere. They haven't even been designed yet in the United States. So the chair says it's at least a 10-year wait before we'll even have a small nuclear reactor available for business to consider. They have the same kind of problems that we had with Pilgrim, with no place to put the waste, and it generates much more waste per megawatt than the current reactors. They have the same issues of course, of radiation, and they're incredibly expensive. Just as a matter of, I mean, it's unlikely that the nuclear industry will even try to build them as a way of producing power cheaply. But if they do, the expense is terrific. But my question to you is that, are we protected in the Holtec agreement to see whether or not Holtec wants to put them in Plymouth? And if that were true, are we forced to wait 10 years till they finally decide whether or not they're going to put them here? Or can we use that site for something more benign and beneficial in the short run? Because frankly, 10 years is, I would never see them, but I'm still concerned about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. So taking your two questions in turn. So first and foremost, the draft warrant, Mr. Brindisi, while sitting over there, did send an email out to us as well as other town departments with the draft warrant so that it can be publicly disseminated. That was at 6:26 p.m., so during the meeting, so less than 30 minutes ago when the question was asked. So that will presumably be posted on the town website. It is on the website already? I was going to say tomorrow, but it's already there. So we're ahead of ourselves in many regards. So that is recently available, but that is available, so that's good news. Then in regards to SMRs, so for people that don't know, SMR means a small modular reactor, which is a burgeoning type of new nuclear technology for power generation. In addition to being chair of the select board, I also am chair of the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel that reviews the decommissioning of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station. And Holtec serves on that panel, members of Holtec, as well as members of the public and appointed officials, and state agency representatives as well from various departments. So right now, SMRs are just getting on the scene. I believe one is on the cusp of being deployed in Michigan. I think there is an approved product for there, but I believe it's the first of its kind in the nation. Other large companies are in the process of developing their own small modular reactors as well. So while none are fully deployed yet, there is one that is about to come on board. Whether that will be successful or not, whether that is desirable or not, is also a very much an open question. But that is something that is on the scene just recently and is going to continue to develop over the next few years. The permitting process for that type of technology can be kind of onerous, which is why it can take that 10-year period, because it has to get licensing through federal regulations. And then you asked a question about the current site and whether one would be deployed there and whether we had any input on that. So, well, currently there's a state law that requires a statewide vote to open a new nuclear power facility. So anywhere in Massachusetts, including here. So if under current state law, there would have to be a statewide referendum to permit an SMR or a more traditional type of nuclear power plant from opening here or anywhere else in the Commonwealth. The board, members of the board and administration did have an opportunity to meet with Governor Healy back in June, and we talked, part of her administration's agenda is nuclear power. We hear that and we think, you mean Plymouth, because we're the only site with a currently live license, which would make it easier to modify a current license than to get a new license through the NRC. But she said, at least at the time, which was June 10th, I believe, that, or no, June 11th, that she wasn't looking to deploy that in Plymouth, which was somewhat surprising, but we accepted that and took that. But there's also, they'd have to modify their license if they did want to deploy one here. They'd have that town-wide vote. My understanding from Holtec that I've heard indirectly was that they, because of the statewide vote, that they kind of view Massachusetts as off limits for nuclear right now because they don't think that would pass. Obviously, that could change over time. However, their current decommissioning schedule assumes that they're going to be able to discharge the water into, meaning dump the water, into Cape Cod Bay. That is being appealed by them. The Mass DEP has said they cannot. That is being appealed by them. The town has intervened in that lawsuit to protect Cape Cod Bay from having the water dumped or discharged into it. That is ongoing. But that is currently the schedule from Holtec assumes they will prevail in that effort. Whether or not they will is an open question that will be resolved through the court system. Right now, when Pilgrim was originally constructed, it was not intended to be just one nuclear reactor, it was intended to be up to 3 nuclear reactors. So the site, there's 1,530.35 acres that we have a right of first refusal. There's more than that that's in their ownership and control. But a large portion of the 1,530.35 that we do control is still under their license because it was licensed and permitted for the originally planned larger nuclear power plant. So right now, if they're completing current decommissioning by their projected schedule is 2035 for that, and they would only have what's called partial site release of the site at that time. So the 1,530.35 acres could come online in multiple batches, parts of which are not under that license, earlier than 2035, but the parts that are under that license are extremely unlikely to come on the market and be usable by the town or any other entity prior to 2035. It's called a partial site release because there's still dry cask storage on the site. Current dry cask storage on the site is projected to be there until at least 2063. It is possible that it will be there for longer than that because there's no current federal depository for nuclear fuel. The town is examining the possibility of joining with other communities and potentially trying to litigate that with the federal government because they made a promise to do that. Current operators and owners of licenses through the under the NRC, what they'll do is, because they were made a promise as an operator of a nuclear power plant that there would be a federal repository for that storage, what they do is they periodically sue the federal government for not following up on their obligation. For those that don't know, there was a plan to open a facility called Yucca Mountain in Nevada a number of years ago. That was, the kibosh was put on that by the then leader of the Democratic Senate caucus, Harry Reid, who said he didn't want it in his state, but waited until after the place was built and all the jobs were done to pull the plug on that, which was sneaky. But in any event, currently, the federal government still have an obligation to provide a repository, but they have not done that. So the operators will do is periodically sue for the expense that they're incurring that they shouldn't have to incur because that facility is supposed to already be open. The town is examining the possibility of also doing something like that to further incentivize the federal government to get off their hands and actually create a repository as we were promised. Because when we had this plant open back decades ago, there was a promise made that we wouldn't be warehousing this spent nuclear fuel forever, and currently we are in a situation where, as it looks right now, we will be under the current status quo, maintaining that for forever, which is undesirable. So that went a little bit farther and in a little bit more depth than SMRs, but those are sort of all the variables and issues related to that currently. Does anyone else have any questions on SMRs or on the decommissioning of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station? Anyone in virtual attendance? All right. Anyone in physical, oh, did you want to add something to that?
Just, I know there's the handicap that is looking at this issue locally, but there was years ago here in the town of Plymouth, up until recently, a Plymouth Nuclear Affairs Committee that was derived out of an agreement with the plant. That committee existed, and then somewhere recently it ceased to exist. I was, if someone from the staff end can look into when this committee existed and when it ceased to exist, because I do think that, yes, we have handicap that's going about its business, but what's going to transpire at that plant over the next 10 and 15 years as it decommissions, we should be prepared to understand our options as a community, and that affairs committee was very instrumental over the years of giving the residents an opportunity to strategize amongst themselves of the best strategies when dealing with the plant. Obviously, the plant is shut down now. It's decommissioning. That's going to happen over a period of time, but we might want to revisit the purpose of that internal community committee looking at the options at the plant. It had existed up until recently, so I would be interesting to see where it went and why it went.
So the Nuclear Matters Committee last held a meeting in 2017 and had an inability to reach a quorum for a number of years. Existed on paper for a period of time after that, but in practice did not exist. It was actually on the chopping block last year for potential elimination as a committee because it was defunct for a prolonged period of time. It was maintained in a vestigial sense because the handicap enabling statute gives the town of Plymouth 2 direct seats and 1 seat that is through the Nuclear Matters Committee, and the handicap enabling statute is created by state law, not by town. So it was just impossible for us to amend that ourselves. From the conversations had by us with members of the prior members of the Nuclear Matters Committee, it seemed that the opinion of those members was that handicap largely supplanted the need for nuclear matters because it was somewhat redundant. Nuclear matters predated handicap, which is why it was put on there. And it was difficult to maintain membership. It was difficult to have it was impossible for a prolonged period to have a quorum of members, and they did not have a meeting for a number of years. So unfortunately, that is the fate of the Nuclear Matters Committee as a functional entity. That is something that we looked at a few months ago. Any other board members on Holtec SMRs? Okay. All right, any members of the public in physical attendance wish to ask a question or make a comment on a topic that we have not covered yet? Mr. Serkey.
Rich Serkey, Precinct 2. I had prepared some brief remarks about birds before I saw that the Plymouth Independent had published my most recent letter today, and that Mr. Brindisi gave his very hopeful comments this evening about birds. So let me be even briefer than I intended to be. On July 31st, this board, through the Director of Inspectional Services, commendably started to play hardball with the owner of birds. Strike one was a letter to the owner, pursuant to state law, ordering him to secure the property by installing a 6-foot chain link fence around the structure within 24 hours of his receipt of the letter. The owner did this. Strike two was a second letter to the owner, pursuant to state law, ordering him to, quote, begin removing the dangerous building on the property by 12 p.m. on the day after receipt of this letter, close quote. The owner has not done this. So as I indicated in my letter, it's time now to throw strike three. And what I suggest is an order tonight directing the Director of Inspectional Services to arrange for the demolition of the building at the owner's expense, as authorized by state law, quote unquote, because the public safety so requires, close quote. Public safety requires that the bulldozers be brought now because the unattractive nuisance of this recently fenced-off building is drawing the eyes of drivers away from the road before them. So bring the bulldozers now and strike out Burt's once and for all. Every resident of Plymouth and every visitor to Plymouth will thank you for doing so. And one final note, Mr. Brindisi commented that an application for demolition had been filed.
Had been pulled. It's been pulled by the building owner, the property owner, but it has not been filed yet with the town.
The application has...
They pulled the application for demolition, but they haven't returned the application as of yet. We're waiting for the return. We'd like to know their means and methods of demolition before we could issue a demolition permit.
I would not leave the demolition of this building up to the applicant, given his track record. The town has the ability to demolish this property on its own, and I would urge the town to do so. The cost can be added under state law to the owner's tax bill. It will draw interest if not paid on time at, I believe, the rate of 14% per annum. And just because the owner has applied for the demolition permit, how do we know that he's going to follow through? The condition of the building is no indicator that he'll keep his word. So that's my brief speech.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cirque. So the board issued the letters for securing of the property within 24 hours of receipt, which was followed through on, and then issued a demand that it be demolished within 60 days, and that was only 2 weeks ago. So while I appreciate the enthusiasm for removing Burt's, and I do think that the removal of Burt's is imminent, it would not be great for the town to say, in my opinion, for the town to say, you have 60 days to do this, and then 14 days later to go ahead and do it for them. So I understand that Burt's is unattractive and has been a point of public concern for a number of years, and I also understand your particular enthusiasm for its removal. However, progress has been made, and we are still well within the window that we gave them. So I think, in the interest of fairness and fair dealing, we should not jump the gun, so to speak, on this particular issue.
Mr. Chairman, 60 days was not in the order of the Director of Inspectional Services. There was no specific time limit.
It was clearly conveyed and reported upon, so we're still within that time frame that we communicated. So if need be, we can address the issue, but I think for right now, patience is once again a virtue.
One additional advantage to doing it now will be that you won't hear me anymore complaining about it.
I doubt that. We wouldn't hear you complaining about that, but Mr. Cirque,
that should weigh in your thinking.
I think you'd be back for something else. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Anyone else wish to talk about Burt's that's in physical attendance? Anyone in virtual attendance? Okay. Anyone else in physical attendance wish to talk about something else? Yes, Mr. Watkins.
not having good luck this evening.
You're a wrecking ball this evening, Mr. Watkins.
My name is Hampton Watkins. I reside at 10 Bridgegate. I think I know all of the participants here. I raised a subject to Mr. Brindisi's attention much earlier this year. The town of Plymouth has been delinquent, if you will, in updating the state information on the GIS. And I know that Derek has been working on it. He referred me to
Jim.
Well, to initially to the Director of Planning and Development, and then to the Director of IT. And I've been in communication with both of them. And I know that an external contractor has been retained by the town, and thank you very much for making sure that this progresses. One of the things that is pointed out here is that when databases don't get updated and refreshed on a regular basis, they experience, just as your vegetables do on the kitchen counter, a bit of rot, and they spoil over time. This is something that needs to be addressed on an ongoing, recurring basis, and I know that there are staffing issues of all sorts in town, but I would suggest that after the departure of a very skilled individual from the town's employ back in 2022, post-COVID, there needs to be some addressing on the staff of geographic information so that the public can remain well-informed of changes in the status of properties, and particularly from my perspective, land use and acquisition. It would be quite helpful. So thank you very much, and if there's any additional information that would be useful to us all, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. So,
Mr. Chairman, if you'd
yes.
like.
Go ahead, Mr.
Respond. So I do have an update. It was part of my report today, but I was going a little bit long-winded, so I cut some of my statements short. So to Mr. Watkins' point, July 1st, 2024, the town hired a full-time GIS manager. That person's been in place for a little over 12 months now. It was reported to me this morning by the IT director, Joe Young, that our GIS mapping is now 96 complete. So we have a little bit more work to do, but we're working towards 100% completion in the very near soon.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brindisi. That'll show you for cutting your town manager's report short. All right. Anyone else in physical attendance have any questions or comments related to GIS? Anyone virtually? Okay. Anyone in physical attendance have any interest in talking about a topic or asking a question on a subject we have not covered yet? Yes, Mr. Leyden.
Steve Leyden, the summer's over, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the recreational director for the program they had at Hedges Pond. It was fantastic. The way they watched the kids to make sure that they were secured while they were there, make sure that people who picked up the children were checked out so they knew who they were. And also I have to commend the school department. They have a scientific camp. I was so impressed when my 7-year-old granddaughter come back with some of the projects that she did. These are two programs that were fantastic. As far as Annie goes in the rec department, the director, she's fantastic. I don't know how she does all the programs that she does, but between soccer and everything else that she does, we should be very proud of her, and this town's very lucky to have someone like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leyden. Does anyone else in physical attendance wish to comment or ask questions about the Hedges Pond Recreation Program and/or Science Camp? Virtually? All right. Anyone else in physical attendance wish to talk about something else that we have not covered previously? Anyone else in virtual attendance wish to cover a topic that we have not covered previously? All right. Anyone in physical attendance wish to revisit a topic that we did cover previously that you'd like to cover in more depth? Yes, go ahead.
Steve Lantang, Precinct 10. I'm not sure who to ask, the board or Mr. Brandisi, on the details of the Article 4 for capital recommendations, of the actual details and fine print of that, the 2 line items for the airport, other than saying reconstruction.
Which particular
The
items under Article 4?
reconstruction of runway 624 and taxiway 3, I think. It just says that. What are the details of that, I'm asking?
I can forward you the
That's
memos,
fine.
the
That'd be
backup
great.
material. And I have your email, Mr. Langstein, so I can forward you the
Okay.
memos, the backup materials.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else in physical attendance wish to revisit something we've already discussed? Mr. Malaguti.
Aaron Malaguti, Precinct 2. So I want to go back on the Memorial Hall issue and talking about looking at it not as just the business plan, but also as the other venues that are under exploration for the concept for the new and improved Memorial Hall. So I know you were talking about the visit that was had at the Portsmouth Performing Arts Center. I'm wondering if there's also looking at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, which is only 4 years older than Memorial Hall and also has the similar aspects of Memorial Hall with the Hall of Flags, Veterans Memorials, and all that other stuff, as well as other function rooms like our Blue Room and things like that. They also have the same structure as the Performing Arts Center, that they have it outside of municipal control for a board that also governs the operations and funding and revenue raising for that, as well as a program for business and residential sponsorships as well too, for programs, capital fundraisers and other things as well too.
Okay. Have we looked at that specific? We have not.
No, we haven't looked at Lowell, but certainly, as I mentioned earlier, first stop would be Portsmouth, and we are happy to go visit any one of these locations to learn what works and what doesn't work, and if we can pull best practices back to this community, we plan on doing that. So yeah, we'll definitely look at Lowell.
Okay.
If I can- Thank you, because I only looked at it not just because it's within the same state, but also because it has the same historic functions, the same protocols, and also it runs similar tangent. It's almost like our sister center of the North in a way. It has basically, besides some of the aesthetic components, it used to be a larger venue, but it's now a smaller venue based on different construction models that happened a few decades after its initial build, but it's probably about 20% or so seat capacity larger than ours, but it's in the range for the modeling for the current footprint and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malaguti. We will look into that. Anyone, Mr. Cohen?
So as we go forward on the historical survey that will take place, I know that they'll be looking at other, we could probably direct them, whoever does get rewarded the task to look at other communities, because you bring up a very important point. This is not the only memorial hall in Massachusetts. There's 351 towns, and numerous towns have very similar buildings, and would probably want to reach out to them to find out how they were able to tackle some of the issues that we're all grappling with right now. If I just want to go back to Article 4, I did have a chance to attend an airport commission meeting, and they had been going to the FAA. There had been some resistance in the community about expanding the runway. Knowing that to be the case, the airport commission was looking at the FAA about the funding that was available, and they wanted to invert the two activities, meaning that they would stay away from, for the time, temporarily, not asking to expand the runway, but asking to improve the runway itself, not expanding it, just retiring it. And the money is available for the retiring of that, and they don't want to lose that funding because there are funding mechanisms that are coming out of Washington that are putting the FAA and the Plymouth Airport Commission at a point where it needs to move sooner rather than later when it comes to that runway, and I believe that is the article that they are proposing. It's not to expand the runway, it's to address the current condition of the runway.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Anyone else in physical attendance wish to cover a topic that we've already covered? Anyone in virtual attendance? All right. One last call for anyone to talk about anything. All right. If that is it, then we will move on from this agenda item into our next agenda item, which is select board discussion. Do we have any new business?
Is this new or old business?
This is new.
Okay.
All right. No new business. Any letters? Any old business? Yes, Mr. Cohen.
So first I want to say that I had an opportunity to visit with this time of year, the summer, people are having neighborhood gatherings, associations are meeting, residents are gathering. I've had a chance to take part in a couple. One, the Great Herring Pond Watershed Association had their annual picnic. It was very interesting. They were giving tours of the pond and its condition. And also the Six Ponds Association was having a picnic. It's interesting when you go out into the community and you see the energy that these neighbors and these residents have for their community and its resources. So I just wanted to make note of that. The other thing I know that I've mentioned this before, and I'll continue to mention it. It's my desire to see the Sand and Gravel Committee reconstituted. As it's been pointed out by the chairman, that there is staffing issues relevant to supporting such a endeavor at this point in time. I did have a chance to talk to the Director of Planning and Development, who indicated the concerns that were noted by the chair in staffing, and I have had a chance to talk to the town manager. My hope is that with the planning department short on staff, that they would work with the Department of Human Resources to see if there was any possibility for temporary consultants to fill in the gap when it comes to the Conservation Commission's responsibilities, the Agricultural Committee, the Open Space Committee. These are committees that are obviously also being affected by this staffing issue. As I was working on this issue relevant to hopefully moving in a direction where we could reconstitute the sand and gravel, I did come across this dilemma, and I see that staff is working on that, so we wait to hear what their results are. So I did want to go back and point out this issue that I felt we needed to talk about. And there was one other issue in the industrial park in North Plymouth. We have a sand and gravel removal operation from that location in the area has been apparently stabilized with some looming and seeding. I was concerned about the level of loom and seed that was associated with that, the orders of condition on that site. So I'm gathering information And if anything, the staff has found from inspectional services or the building department, when those permits were issued, about the sand and gravel stabilization of that location, would be interesting to see if staff is any more successful than myself getting that information about that site, because right now it doesn't appear to be too stable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohan. And we are keeping an eye on the staffing challenges that the planning department is experiencing. And as I've previously committed to, once we're able to resolve that one way or the other, we can examine the sand and gravel bylaw working group or committee, which was previously a planning board committee when it was constituted in, I believe, 2014 or thereabouts. So that is something that will be done once we're able to staff it through either resolution of current issues or through other means, as you alluded to, or other means entirely. So that is being actively examined. Other old business? All right. Well, I don't have any myself other than to thank those that came and attended this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to hear from you and answer your questions and try and meet you where you are. So thank you for coming. We will continue our On the Road program. Our next On the Road will be in September and is going to be at Manomet Elementary. So if you're not here, but you'd like to be there, or if you are here, you're also invited there. So hopefully we will see folks at that location as well to continue the conversation and addressing neighborhood and community concerns. So if that is all we have, do I have a motion to adjourn for the evening?
So moved.
Having concluded our business,
I'll
Mr.
second.
Golden moves, Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Any objection? Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
And myself, yes, it is unanimous. We are adjourned at 7:41 p.m. Thank you, everyone.